Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about these markets. Welcome, guys, and it's going to be another one of those days where we have quite a bit going on. Clearly, I mean, we've been talking about it all week, right? The importance of the price action that we would see coming out of some of these macroeconomic data events, I guess we could call them, but as we can see, the market is really not responding super favorably to the unemployment data that we got this morning. And we're going to talk about all of that and more here on this show. Obviously, quite a few charts that we're going to have to delve into on today's show. But I'm Snorlax. You guys also know me as Tommy. I'm joined by Tucker, Jackus, Dr. Will's Outlook, Louis Tuesday, and we have welcomed back Popeye as well. For you guys, if you've been around for the last few weeks, you will remember Popeye. He did a great job, and it seems like we need a little bit of extra help to cover the markets today, given the volatility that we are currently seeing basically since last night, right? And really this morning in equities. We got a very hot unemployment print. The market is not responding super favorably, especially after Powell. You know, he didn't say it explicitly, but he kind of did on Wednesday that we will get a cut at the September meeting. The market, in my opinion, is probably getting a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to that information, but markets can remain irrational for periods of time, as we know. But before we can start talking about charts, more granular and actionable trading information, I'm going to ask you guys to slam, smash, destroy the like button, whatever you need to do. It is Friday. I can't believe we've already come towards the end of this week. Like I said, I mean, we had so much going on throughout the week that it's kind of surprising that it is already Friday, but when you work in markets, these periods of time tend to go by pretty quickly. But if you guys can smash that like button for us before we start cooking, we promise we are going to give you all of the alpha that we can possibly provide on a day where we have quite a bit of volatility in the markets, like I said. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin and crypto have held up, relatively speaking, very well on this dip. Can they carve out a higher low here in the face of this equity market weakness? I think this is kind of around the territory you would expect Bitcoin to do it. Obviously, ETH and altcoins are going to be a little bit weaker. Just some of that risk off sentiment that you're seeing in equities probably being displayed on crypto as well. But yeah, I mean, equities are really the tail today. I mean, VIX is up. Oh my God, we're about to get a 30 handle on the VIX. It's up 60% in a single daily candle. I can't remember the last time that I've seen the VIX do that. You've got the NASDAQ and the S&P down about 2.5% today. So big second half of the day coming, I think, for markets to kind of decide how we're going to trade into next week. I'd love to just get it over with today, right? Like the selling is done today, maybe a little bit on Monday, and then we can continue going on our merry way next week. But I want to hear from the panel. I want to hear how we are interpreting all of this volatility that we are seeing this morning, because it is not just exclusive to one market. We are seeing it all across the board. And something I wanted to point out too, everything is down right now except for vol, even the dollar, right? So you have risk markets selling off, but so is the dollar index. A very interesting I don't even know if you can call it a correlation, but a very interesting movement from a lot of these charts so far this morning. But how are we doing, guys? And what are we seeing in the markets?
The dollar is screaming that everybody's an idiot here. Okay? That's what it's screaming. It's screaming the poor's are going to be poorer because they're going to sell here to buy lower. And it is screaming that there's something weird going on right now with the market. That's what it's screaming to me. We're down 4% on Bitcoin on the day with a VIX at 30. What are we really expecting here? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What are we expecting? What's the expectations here? Dollar is absolutely nuking. VIX is running. That doesn't correlate with me. That doesn't correlate at all. That for me, I think the market is reacting, and it's acting in a way that's irrational and not rational, and those tend to resolve in the opposite direction of the move when that occurs. That's just my perspective on what's actually happening here. We don't have any systemic puke on Bitcoin. We don't have any systemic puke in crypto. Possibly even front ran it in crypto with the 52K move originally. And that was probably your signal that equities were going to be the next one to take a hit. And equities, I don't know, man. I would highly doubt that these things continue to resolve to the downside after this week, to be honest with you. I'd say one more week max, if possible. But and in addition to that, like VIX, this kind of move today, man, I don't see it continuing. It's too much. It's just too much to the volatility. Volatility spikes like this and then cools down for a long period of time.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this like, you know, I like these levels. It's a sort of a level to level me matey situation, right? Like I think you lose 62.5, you're probably getting the CME gap fill, right? That's probably what you're getting. I wouldn't expect this last arrow to play, but somewhat of a line in the sand for me, right? Like you've got this little bit of structure here too, kind of holding you up. So kind of a short-term line in the sand. But yeah, I mean, look, we got hot unemployment data, which was not great. You got the VIX doing that, not great. But like you said, Will, the DXY is absolutely cooked. S&P not looking great.
Does it smell right to you the way it's set up right now? That's the question.
I
Tucker.
mean,
Does it smell right?
here's all you need to like look at, right? And I just like charted this out, but hold on. Like it's not that difficult, guys, and ignore the candle colors. But VIX spike bottom, VIX spike bottom, VIX spike bottom, VIX spike. What do you think is about to happen? Like depending on where this thing stops and you start to see like any red candle, like that's probably about the bottom, right? So I'm not, I mean, it's already at 30. Like, you know, maybe you get up here, but I'm not expecting any more than that, honestly.
I'm expecting the VIX to be done either today or in Monday's session. But I do think until those sessions close, there is a possibility the VIX continues to climb.
What do you think crypto does this weekend, Tommy?
I've got no idea, man. I've got no idea because it's obviously been pretty strong so far in the morning session. But if we sell hard in New York, then like where does that leave? Where does that leave crypto? I'm not sure because maybe we try to. I really don't know. I'm not gonna speak in certainties, but usually when the VIX climbs this high, there are a lot of consequences for the general market that take more than a day to digest.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like historically we see like after equity weekly closes like this, usually we see some relief. You know, we don't have the sell pressure from equities. We don't have grayscale ETF outflows, which had been weighing down on ETH as well. So, I mean, I would expect some sort of relief, but like Tommy said, no guarantees. But I can see them also puking into Monday morning as well. You know, keep running up a little higher, maybe create a wick high on the VIX at peak volatility, peak fear, something like that. So even if we did get some relief over the weekend, it could probably be faded into Monday morning if we don't see a bottom set in today for crypto. But it was strong at first. Crypto looked great until we got all this nonsense, and even equities were puking, and Bitcoin was holding up quite well until finally it was like a house of cards and everything just started cascading. So, you know, we're obviously seeing that effect from the unemployment. You know, nothing you can do about it.
See, like Tiny Taco says, there will be no rate cuts this year. Everything's going to crash hard. Nobody's expecting it or prepared for it. Based on what?
We're definitely getting rate cuts now.
Based on what? It's like,
yeah,
like, I don't know what that means.
Smarter than the market, you know.
Rate cuts are happening, brother. I'm sorry to tell you.
Look, when you make a bold statement, you have to have something to rebuttal with. You can't just say it's just going to happen, bro. Right? It's just like you know, number go up, bro. What else do you need to know? You're basically saying it's going to break down, bro. Nothing else you need to know. Like that's the conversation we're having with that. This is why we tend to have this conversation back and forth between each other, is because we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together and, you know, see what each other is seeing live on the show for the audience. The data is the most important part. The dollar is telling something different from what VIX is telling us.
Mhm.
VIX is telling us that there's high volatility, which, you know, typically, you know, results in the scenario of fear and sell-offs. And I mean, we saw some insinuations even in the GigaChat chat that were talking about like 1987. It's like that's not even a possibility anymore, because they started doing halts, which is basically where they stop the stock market after a 5 to 7% drop every single day that occurs. So if you do get drops, it's gonna be very mechanical and controlled. And so you're not going to see any drops like that anymore. You're not going to see these big pukes like everybody's expecting in equities. It's just not going to happen. They're gonna control the price action when that starts to occur. So for right now, we're just trying to see, okay, how does the market feel about things? Is the market risk on, risk off, and why we think so? And I think the dollar is telling the opposite of what VIX is telling us, which could mean ultimately, in my perspective, that if the dollar is doing what it's doing and VIX is doing what it's doing, we're probably relatively near a top on VIX, and probably exactly to what Tommy was saying, looking for a bounce on dollar, which means vol cool down, dollar up, and then dollar will probably roll again with a failed shoulder, I would say, later on.
Now, we've seen this dynamic before in equities, where you have a lot of forced selling even when the dollar is dropping. What typically does happen is you get one last little spike on the dollar higher as people flee into cash, and then that usually marks a capitulation, typically. So that's kind of what I'm looking for today and Monday. What happens with the VIX, what happens with the dollar. But when I see a spike on the dollar, like that's definitely going to be, I think, the bottom.
Yeah, I would say, Todd, you keep talking about a recession. If you feel like there's a recession, go all cash. Like, I can't make it any simpler. If you feel like a recession's coming, just go all cash, man. I think, like, if you feel that that's coming, go for it. I don't think a recession's coming. I'm not seeing it in the claims data. Claims is a little hot the other day, but it's not hot enough to really call for a recession. Unemployment is where it is. Even the Fed came out and said, like, unemployment isn't at anywhere near what it historically has been when we see collapses, essentially, right? He didn't say collapses, but when we see collapses, it's usually about 4.5 plus on the unemployment data. Like, I know a lot of people like to talk about unemployment data as that they're all unemployment data experts. And it's funny because, like, whenever we start to see some bearish sentiment in the market, it's everybody run to the unemployment data, everybody run to the claims data. But that wasn't ever a question when we were up only. It was like, oh, unemployment, what is that? Who cares about that? Oh, claims, who cares about that? And now when you're at the lows, everybody's like, oh, you got to look at this metric, look at that metric. Those metrics we're looking at, but the major metrics are your VIX and your dollar. They'll tell you what the metrics look like and how the economy is holding with unemployment, how the economy is holding with claims, and so on and so forth.
But Will, we are unemployment experts. We trade crypto for a living.
That was a good one, Tommy.
That was a good one.
Was
I'll give you that, Tommy.
I don't know, man. I filled out a McDonald's application the other day. They said I could probably be a fry intern, which means I won't get paid, but eventually I'll get a job after being an intern for a certain amount of time. Study working for free. Study
working for free.
Jackus, what's your interpretation on the unemployment rate today? Because I have seen some interesting commentary, for one, from you. Obviously, you've been talking about how you thought unemployment rate was, I think you said it was bottom locally speaking, but I also saw some commentary on X today that was talking about maybe the data on unemployment's a little bit skewed this month. It might be like a one-off print, and that next month we see unemployment head back down to that 4.1 level that it was typically, or that it was previously kind of gravitating towards. What are your thoughts on that, as well as the macroeconomic data that we got today?
Well, I think it's like I don't know how skewed it is. We all know that the governments will skew the government data, right? Usually in their favor, but they can do it locally. They can skew the overall trend. So the trend is all that I care about. And as I was saying, the trend has been steadily going up. And as I was saying there, it's not just like I never recommend anyone looking at a single metric. So I always recommend like drawing a conclusion, a context, right? And there has just been too many stuff going on. You guys know that right at the single top. I think like I was a little lucky with it, with like the equity stop, but doesn't matter. Like right, like I was saying that we are going to begin the topping formation for equities, and then the recession is going to happen, but it may not be like straight from here straight down. Although it is what is currently happening, I still do not think that is going to be the case, especially when VIX is like up so much today. I think we are going to get the bounce, if not today, then probably early next week, maybe even over the weekend. We'll see, but because of insiders, but I think locally we are going to get the bounce. I think even equities could potentially like hit still new all-time highs from here. But I do think that essentially we are at the topping formation on them, and I think deeper problems will essentially roll over. And my hopes are that in that time period where hopefully equities bounce strong is when crypto really shines and is given enough time to outperform. As I always say, Tommy, I'm like a bull by heart. I love being bullish and I do remain macro bullish on crypto, but like locally, I was always acknowledging the risks that were available and they are currently playing out. So just my take. And when it comes to the skewed data, like, yeah, maybe they're right. I do not know. Maybe like next month we are back again at 4.1%. It's possible. I do not think so, but maybe, right? We'll see. But essentially, I think the trend is going to continue upwards because I'm not really seeing a reasoning why it shouldn't change anytime soon.
I will say this: I see that, Todd. I'm coming for you. So Todd's talking about 16K AK. What do you guys think of 16K AK Bitcoin? What do you guys think? Like, let's put in a percentage chance. What do you think the percentage chance of that happening is from here? We'll start with Popeye. Popeye, what do you think the percentage of chance of 16K to 8K Bitcoin?
I'm not really into prediction, but I see difficult to happen in the nearby future, but it might happen next year. Okay. I mean, we are speaking about 200% drop. What is
200% drop? Jesus.
I mean, I don't find it is an actionable information to discuss now about 16K, but in crypto everything is possible. Let's say.
Okay, all right.
I would invert the number, and I would invert the number and speak about 61K. I think it's more an actionable information.
I like 61 too.
16K is just a bearish cope right now. Like that's not an, as you say, Popeye, that's not an entertainable. I mean, unless like we want to joke, right? But like right now, it has no value.
So you're saying, Jackus, we shouldn't even entertain it because it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get the panel's thoughts on that. I don't think we need to ask anybody else. You heard it first.
The question, Jackus. Will, is I haven't seen any of you mentioning of what's currently happening being overreaction on the trouble in the Middle East. Lagging, let's say, overreaction on the Middle East.
I think from like a scalper's perspective, that's big for you, right, Popeye? Like I think if you're a scalper, these wars are really good places to be looking. But if you're not scalping and you're swinging or you're just investing, right? I think they're minute positions in the charts personally. Because Middle East, tell me a time it hasn't been at war. I can't think of any time off the top of my head that there hasn't been a war.
Yeah, sure. That's why I say overreaction. I mean, it's market showing some irrationality to something that, as you say, has been something very, very constant. So it's
yeah.
I think when it comes to Middle East, I think the only relevant information. I agree with you guys that like the they are like constantly sending out the news, discussing stuff. But I think the only thing that's really entertainable is that like Saudi Arabia started to sell oil, not using US dollars, and that I think is big.
But that's been going on now with China and Russia and a few other countries since 2021.
But not Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but that's because they're being forced into having to use the currency that they're trading with, and that's just other countries not accepting, like China, for instance, and Russia are not accepting US dollar.
But I understand it with Russia, of course, but like Saudi Arabia, well, everyone in the world was under the petrodollar, where they have to use dollars to trade oil, right? Because dollar is backed by oil, basically, and anyone that tried otherwise has been attacked. That's just the fact. We all know how it goes. So I think that the fact that Saudi Arabia started to trade oil for something else than dollars is a big issue coming from that region. But other than that, I think that I agree it's an overreaction.
Yeah, I think these are like things to pay attention to, but and keep them in your back pocket as cards to really kind of like, okay, I need to watch for this becoming a situation later. But I think like looking at them in the current purview, I don't know that they affect markets at the moment, or that they probably already have if that's the case, right? So it's one or the other. So they either already have the market itself right now is, well, at least not the market. I would say the market participants, the retail is looking for any excuse to call for a much lower, than where we realistically probably will go as far as price action. And they're reaching is what I like to call it, right? Reaching for anything that they can grasp onto. It's like grasping at straws. And they're like, all right, this is the short straw. This is the short straw. This is a short straw. But there's 100 straws that they got to pull to get to that short straw. And then eventually they get the right short straw. That's a lot of macro bears that have been bears since 2022 that are now coming out of the woodwork like, oh, look, guys, I found the short straw. How many straws did you pull before you found the short straw? Right? That's the whole meaning of pulling at straws for those in the audience. It's a guessing game. They're basically guessing it, and eventually they hit, and then they swear that they were the genius that knew everything was going to happen. One thing that I stated, oh God,
I agree with that, but I think the same applies for the bulls too. And the unfortunate part. So I always say, like, if you gotta choose to be perma something, then be at least perma bull, because the markets are going to go up by nature because we live in an inflationary world, and they will go up by nature, right? So, but like you want to see, I do believe that like where you can get things really right on both direction is on a higher time frames. At least that's how it worked for me, where you can see things rotating early. But when you do that, it's like, again, I will use that example, the most recent one, which I had not most recent one, but recent one, with the BTC bottom at 20K. Again, BTC was selling off, and then you buy at 20K BTC in June 2022, and you are like an idiot for doing so, because it's obviously going to 14K, 12K, 10K, 3K, whatever they were calling for. And then it goes sideways for many months, and they still calling you that. right? But while the price is the same, and then there is an unexpected shakeout during FTX, price drops to 16K, which is not that far like lower. It's still significant drop, but on a longer enough horizon. And when you buy that in June 2022, you do not know how long the price will stay down there. That's the hard part of markets, that you do not know how long ranges will last and so forth. So, but then the market returns, and it should have been already pretty much bottom had it not been for FTX. Of that, I'm pretty much convinced, looking at other macro assets. So historically speaking, it was a great buy, and anyone that bought 20K right back then was a genius right now. But back then, you were called an idiot for a long enough period of time. And that's the tough part of the markets. That's the tough part of like being both bull and bear on different time frames at different situations, which is hard, which is the nature of investing.
Yeah, I tend to agree on that.
Wait, hold up. I got a quick thing that one of our audience members, Will, you know who Pitvox is?
Yeah.
Giga Chad, right? Giga Chad. This is gonna actually wait. Let me do this one. Yeah, let me do this one. Check this out. He tweeted this, and it's pretty nice. Okay. Right. This was SVB with a VIX spike too. What do we say here, huh? What do we think?
That's a valid fractal, I would say. But I would also add to it that with fractals, you also need a context and you need confirmation. So like for BTC, you would need to reclaim 67K. And then at that point, it could start playing out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that thought. I'd say that's probably even the same region. So maybe you do have one more.
I think the context there was very much different, because if you're gonna look at the fractal itself, it's the same, and anyone that will tell you otherwise will be wrong, because the fractal pretty much is the same. Like, it's not completely, but it's very similar. But the difference is that we were coming back from FTX deviation back then, and that we were retesting a weekly breaker. We like broke the weekly market structure from a bear market to bullish, versus this time around, we are still within a range and creating a lower high on Bitcoin, which doesn't necessarily mean this doesn't play out. But as I said, I think
we
needs further
lost the range and
confirmation
we
for
reclaimed it, though, Jack.
Yeah, that's what I say. We are still inside of a range.
Yeah. The fact that we lost it and reclaimed it is bullish for me. But if we lose it again, then I would have issues with it, right? Then I'd be like, okay, this shit, it's no longer a range at that point. Now you got to figure out where the real bottom is, because the bottom is not solidified anymore. But for now, I would say it's almost like the 25K Bitcoin, although we didn't get a deviation there, where it's like, as long as you are within the range, you should respect the range, right? So 62 to 58 is the low, and then 70 to 72 is the high. And basically anything, again, you violate that low, you go below 58, you hit like 55, for instance, now you've broken that range. That range is no longer valid. And now we had to start looking for a falling range, essentially, a downtrending range. From there is where I would look for. And yeah, I agree with the thesis the other day too, Jack, because I didn't get a chance to actually speak on that, where you had stated, well, by the time you break down, you're already going to be in that range where you should probably bid, right? And that's what I'm saying too. Between 62 to we'll say 62 to 52. We'll use that whole range. It's not the place to really sell. I don't see it as a selling point. The selling point would have been when Tommy had disclosed, hey, I think we could run to 70, and I agreed with him that we'll probably roll there. that would have been your selling position if you were looking to get out of this market and buy lower. But if you were just looking to hold the ball, then you're already there. You have to hold the ball at this point. You can't be like, oh, I'm gonna sell here and buy lower.
I think it also comes to like different market. For like BTC is relatively staying pretty much strong. Like we can all see that, right? But if you were, as most people were, trading alts, then lots of them are basically getting massacred through this. Lots of them are, way lower than they were in April. Lots of them are lower than they were during that, even like June low, basically, like that low that BTC printed at 53K in July. Lots of alts are already below that low, and so it really comes to that where I think like BTC is kind of the direction for the market, but if it's not sending, then alts are not sending. And I still have huge issues with, like, I just hope that BTC finally, as all of you, as probably anyone, we all hope that BTC finally leaves this range and sets a directionality. And me being a bull by heart, being a bull on Bitcoin since like very early days, since 2016, I do hope it goes to the upside as soon as possible. But I just think that, like I acknowledge that we had, and I said so on the daily, where BTC reclaimed the daily structure there. But when there is a market or like reclaim of structure within a range, and then you create another lower high on the weekly, it's a different scenario than when it happens within a trend. Not to mention that, like, what ETH is doing, right? Like ETH is selling off so sharply, and again, like that's why the market is, especially the crypto market, I think it's way more clear in equities right now what's going on there versus how to play it with crypto. But like if you're gonna look at ETH and BTC, right? BTC has created a lower low on the weekly, now confirmed another lower high, but on the daily it's staying stronger versus like ETH is way weaker on the daily time frame, but vice versa is stronger on the weekly time frame, where it has created lower highs but not lower low just yet. So like in that regard, it's still pretty confusing, and I still think there are lots of risks in the market that lots of people are just not appreciating right now. But I do hope that those risks are gone soon. Not seeing that right now. I do hope they are gone soon, and then we can resume up only market. But yeah.
What do you think about Tommy's thesis that this will probably resolve in probably the next 5 days, roughly, give or take?
You mean equities?
Everything in general. If I'm wrong, Tommy, correct me.
No, I think the selling at least like should probably be done within the next few days. At least that's kind of my base case, that this is a mid-cycle correction. I guess if data continues to deteriorate, we can be flexible with that, but it's not really my expectation.
I think that equities, yes, as I said in the beginning, I think where VIX is at right now. Let me see. Yeah, I think VIX is kind of looking like VIX is going to probably top again in the next 5 days. I think we probably are going to get a strong bounce from equities today or early next week. Like of that, I am pretty certain, or like have high probabilities. And as I said, I think equities could still even make a new all-time highs. Still, do not have to, but they could. Definitely, what I'm seeing is a bounce from here, because when VIX breaks out, it like confirms that something is going on, but it doesn't mean that insta jeet, right? Like that we just going to start jeeting from here, because this is where panic is happening, and when there is a panic, a counterparty gotta step in and the market bounces basically. But what I do see happening again is where the equities are, in my opinion, in a topping formation over the next year, possibly. Again, I cannot predict the time, just like I couldn't at when BTC was at 20K, but I do see them hitting topping formation right here. How it results
What
in
if?
crypto, that
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
that could be different, right? Like we saw that BTC and ETH can easily go down while equities are moving higher. So, but if like there is going to be a panic, crypto would probably go down with it. But like I'll go again level to level probably, as I always do.
I would love to know
What do you
Popeye-
think about? Yeah. That's actually a good point. We do have a special guest that we haven't been acknowledging. Go ahead, Popeye. Give us
Oh,
your
we got
give us
a
your
full panel today.
Yeah, we do.
Oh Jesus!
So Popeye,
Bobby, welcome.
what are you seeing? Were you positioned for this more recent downturn, or what are you seeing in the charts? I love your your TA and your perspective on the market. So would love to know what you're seeing on the lower time frames and the higher time frames.
Well, it seems that it's always the same money on the table, so it's a very big liquidity game. And I think that the biggest signal was after the big deviation we had below support down to 53. You would expect after a deviation like that to have enough fuel in the tank to at least reach resistance, to at least reach above 70K, but that was not the case. So when you fail to break after a very big liquidity hunt, bull trap, call it as you want, you might expect that that price move again down to hunt for more liquidity, and this shows that probably is always the same money on the table. So it's people stealing from is all of us stealing from each other. So the way alts are selling off and the way dominance is going up, it's really showing that alts are weak, except very few exceptions. I have some chart if you want guys to show.
Yeah, let's give them the chart,
Yes,
guys.
please.
So while
so when
Bitcoin
Papa,
is
when you
at,
say that it didn't come back to resistance, you mean when it reclaimed that macro range because it didn't get back to range highs? You're saying that's the reason why we're seeking liquidity lower.
yeah, I mean, what you would expect after a move like this, I think the move that you, Louis, were predicting very nicely. I mean, after you have this move, you would expect at least to want some liquidity on the top here, or to at least reach resistance. But failure to move forward here, to move up here, it gives you the impression that there is not enough fuel in the tank, so we are moving down again. And the level I see that could be interesting to do some business could be this very big gap we form here on the way up. So just using the 3-day chart to say this gap around here, we have the fib pocket that I drew it before. Around this level could be an area for a bounce after another liquidity hunt around here, or down to support. I agree with Will that if we lose support once again, it would be the third time, and that would not be a very nice sign. And this wall range would take more the shape of a distribution rather than an accumulation. The context here is also important because August is usually very low volatility.